Welcome to the Bicyclist and Pedestrian Count online training. My name is Tracy Lipford. I'm manager of the counts and I'll be guiding you through this training. So let's get started. So what is the goal of the Bicyclist and Pedestrian counts? Basically, what gets counted counts. The information you collect helps the city of Fort Collins better understand traveler behavior. It helps us justify investments in bicyclist and pedestrian infrastructure, like this green bike box here you can see on Laurel and College, and also support the planning and prioritization of improvements. So here's our overall approach. We'll be doing the counts on September 13th, 15th, and 17th. On Tuesday, September 13th, we'll be performing counts at all of our count locations, which includes 11 trails and 16 intersections during all of our count time periods, so 7 to 9 a.m., noon to 2, and 5 to 7 p.m. On Thursday, we will only be performing our trail counts during these 3 time periods, and on Saturday, we'll be performing all of our counts at all count locations, but only during one time period from noon to 2. And here on the right, you can see a map of all of our count locations. So let's go ahead and go into the trail count instructions. So all the trail counter volunteers will be provided with an instruction sheet just like this. And basically what this sheet does is detail the information on what you'll need to bring to your count, what you'll need to do before the count, and what you'll do during the count. So if you ever have any questions, I encourage you to reference this sheet and it will most likely be able to help you out. So basically what we want you to bring to the count is anything to help you be comfortable. One of the most important things, or some of the most important things, is bringing a pen or pencil to write with, including a spare, just in case one of your pens or pencils fails and you don't have anything to write with. That would be a real bummer. So make sure you have an extra. Also make sure that you have a device to help you tell time. A lot of people use their cell phones because you'll be collecting data in 15-minute increments. But a wristwatch works just fine too. Just make sure you're paying attention to that 15-minute mark for each 15-minute increment. We'll talk more about that later. Also, you may want to be prepared for all kinds of weather conditions. Last year, the counts were really quite favorable weather-wise. It was really warm and sunny, but in the past there have been some rainy counts. So we do want our trail count volunteers and all of our count volunteers really to be there for the entire 2-hour count. So we want you to be comfortable during that time, so be prepared for adverse weather conditions. Bring a rain jacket, bring a hat, sunscreen, bring a chair if you'd like to. Snacks and water are also helpful. We would like you to arrive at your count location 5 to 10 minutes early. And when you do arrive, make sure to give me a quick phone call or text me. Text will probably be easier, but if you're not a texter, you can go ahead and give me a phone call. I may not answer, but you can leave me a voicemail. I might be on the phone with somebody else helping them out. So just let me know that you've arrived at your count location. And if you have any questions during your count, you can always get a hold of me with that number in the blue there too. And then again, at the bottom of your sheet are instructions on what to do during your count, which I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit. So in addition to your count instructions, each trail count volunteer will be provided with a map as well. So there's a large scale map on the left and a smaller map on the right to help you locate your trail count location. And then pictured down here at the bottom right is where you can find automated trail counters. So we are asking our count volunteers, our trail count volunteers, to stand near these automated trail counters because we're going to use their data they collect and compare it to the automated trail counter data. So we're going to use the data to validate the trail counters. So that is where you can find those. And we'll talk more about validating trail counters in just a bit. So here's what your count form will look like. At the top, we'd like you to fill out all the data. You can even do this ahead of time. So circle the date that you're going to be performing your count and circle the time period. Make sure to write in your volunteer name. Oftentimes people do overlook that, so you can go ahead and write your name in now. And also when you arrive at the date and time of your count, make sure you circle the weather attributes that apply. So you can circle more than one if there's more than one that do apply. Like if it's cloudy and windy and maybe cold, you can circle all 3 of those. And then moving on to the actual count, we're going to be collecting data on trail users, bicyclists, walkers, runners and joggers, and other users. And other users would be like skateboarders, rollerbladers, scooters, people who maybe are riding on hoverboards. If you don't know what a hoverboard, you can Google that. That's the new craze these days with the college students. So look those up. So basically anyone who's not a bicyclist, a walker, or a jogger, you're going to put in this other category. You're also going to be tracking whether or not each of these trail users is male or female. And you're going to be tracking their direction of travel. So here on the left side of the sheet, you can see NB and SB stands for northbound and southbound. Other sheets might have eastbound and westbound, depending on which trail you're counting at. So when you arrive at your count location, make sure you orient yourself to the north, south, east, west direction so you could accurately tallies on the trail user's direction of travel. And you'll notice that there's time on the left side as well. So again, we're counting these trail users in 15-minute increments. So make sure you bring that timepiece, set your timer if you need to, and mark your tallies in the appropriate boxes. All right, and then at the bottom of the sheet, you can see there are boxes here for bicyclists wearing helmets, dogs on and off leash, and e-bikes. I'd like you all to tally those as well. So just helmets for bicyclists, and then the dogs on and off leash and e-bikes. And we'll talk more about this in just a little bit. So here's a quick quiz. If you were to see a group like this traveling down the trail on one bike, how many bicyclists would you mark on your tally sheet? And the answer is 4. So we're counting the number of people, not the number of bicycles. So if you see more than one person traveling down the trail on a bike, count it as 2 bicyclists. If that bicycle has a trailer attached and maybe there's a child in the back of the trailer, mark down that child as a bicyclist as well. So the parent maybe, or the person who is riding that kid in the trailer would be counted, and so would the kid in the trailer. If you could take note of that child in the trailer's gender, that would be great. Use your best judgment. If you don't know what gender they are, just choose which one you feel is most appropriate, and don't stress out too much about it. Just use your best judgment. And here are some examples of e-bikes. So at the top we have just a normal bike that's outfitted with a trailer. This is called the Ride Kick trailer. It's actually a company in Fort Collins. But inside the trailer there's a battery and a motor, and it propels the bicyclist forward. They still have the ability to pedal, so they could go using their own power, but they have this electric assist as well in the trailer. And then down below are some more examples of e-bikes, and most notable in these e-bike down below are the very large hubs on the front and rear wheels. So that could be a defining characteristic, as well as the really wide or thick down tube or seat tube that house the battery and motor. And sometimes you might be able to hear the electric motor. Also, if maybe there's a bike on the trail that has a gas motor and that bike still has the ability to pedal, you can go ahead and mark that bike as an e-bike as well. So long as the bike has the ability to pedal and there seems to be some sort of motor assist, mark it down. If you notice it's a gas assist, you can just take a note saying that you think it's a gas motor. If it's just a regular e-bike, you can just put down a tally mark for e-bike. So as I said earlier, our trail counters will also be validating the automated trail counters, which are seen here as this gray box on the left side of the screen at the Poudre Trail at mile marker 0.5. And basically this gray box has a little hole in the side of it, and out of that hole comes the infrared beam. So any trail user that breaks that beam when they're traveling across the trail, they will be counted by this automated trail counter. So we want you as a volunteer to be standing nearby the trail counter, but make sure you're not blocking the beam. So don't stand in front of the trail counter. Don't be blocking that little black hole you see on the left side picture there, because that is where that beam comes out. So stand next to it, and I would suggest standing beside it and not across from it, because if you're standing across from it, you might be maybe moving back and forth, and then your movements will be breaking that beam, and then you will be counted numerous times. We don't want that to happen. We will have an inaccurate count. So make sure you're standing on the same side as the trail counter so that you're not breaking that beam. And then also make sure you're using the trail counter, the automated trail counter, as your screen line. So basically that's just your imaginary line that you're drawing across the path as indicated by this red line. And then any trail user that crosses that screen line will be counted on your sheet. And again, mark their direction of travel. If they're traveling northbound or southbound, your trail sheet will have the appropriate direction noted on it. So just make sure that you're oriented to that direction. And then if a trail user crosses your screen line and then turns around and crosses it again going the opposite direction, mark them down twice. That's very important. Mark them down twice because they are crossing it twice. You want to count them twice, and they'd be going opposite directions. So going northbound in one direction and then southbound in the other direction, for example. All right, so this is what your account form may look like at the end of your shift. And at the top, you've circled all the correct data, the date of your count, the time period of your count. You wrote in your name. That's often missed by count volunteers, so make sure you do write in that name. Go ahead and do it now if you haven't done it already. And then also make sure you've noted the weather characteristics too. And then here you can see tally marks in each of the appropriate boxes in the 15-minute intervals. And then I would like you to write down the totals in each box and also circle them, because that helps me get an accurate number on what your count is instead of having to go through and count each individual tally mark. It helps me out a lot to get the correct data if you were to write a total and circle it in each of your boxes. And then at the bottom of your sheet, you'll see that there's a total row for each column. So write in the totals for each of your column, and then also write in the totals for each of your tally boxes at the bottom of your sheet. So bicyclists wearing helmets, dogs on and off leash, and e-bikes. So let's move on to our intersection count instructions. So those who are counting at intersections will only be counting bicyclists. So we're not counting pedestrians here, only bicyclists. So the intersection count volunteers will also get a instruction form similar to the trail counts, detailing what you'll need to bring to the count, what you'll need to do before the count, and how to perform your count. Again, we want you to make sure you're bringing all the items you need to be comfortable, so you're out there for 2 hours, ready to be out in elements if you have to be. If it's raining or if it's cold, be prepared for that. Also make sure to bring a pen or a pencil and a spare and that device to tell time, because we're going to be collecting data in that 15-minute interval. Make sure to text when you arrive at your count location. Again, my phone number is there in the blue. We'd like you to arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. Find a safe vantage point and make sure you'll get your bearings with all the directions, so north, south, east, and west. So here's what your count form will look like. We'd like you to fill out the information at the top in the blue, circle the date of your count, the time period of your count. Again, make sure to write your name in. Don't forget to write your name in. Circle characteristics of the weather that apply. There might be more than one, like maybe it's sunny and hot. Who knows? Circle all that apply. Again, there's that notes section if you feel like we need to know something. Like maybe there's a lot of bicyclists that are running stop signs in this area. I don't know. Anything you feel like we should know, put it there. And you don't have to write anything if you don't want to. And then here you can see the intersection diagrams. There's 2 intersection diagrams, and each intersection diagram represents 15 minutes. So each 15 minutes, you'll move on to the next intersection diagram. It may seem daunting at first because it looks like it's complicated. Don't be concerned. It's really quite simple. What will make your job a lot easier is if you stand in the southeast corner and face north. So notice that there is a compass here printed on the map, as well as this blue star. That blue star indicates the southeast corner. So if you stand in the southeast corner and face north, then the intersection in front of you will match up with the count form that you have in your hand. So that is my suggestion. And don't be concerned with what the letters and numbers mean. You don't need to know what that is. All I want you to do is focus on the arrows. The arrows represent the bicyclist turning movements. So we either have a left turn, a right turn, or a through movement. And basically you're going to be putting your tally marks where the bicyclist originates their movement through the intersection. And in just a little bit, we're going to practice a example together. So just focus on those arrows. And then while you're counting your bicyclist turning movements in the boxes on the diagram, I'd like you to tally the bicyclists wearing helmets on the bottom left, female cyclists, male cyclists, and e-bikes as well. So again, here's just the data we're collecting at these intersection count locations, the bicyclist direction of travel, their turning movement, helmet use, gender, e-bikes, and we're not collecting data on pedestrians. So just ignore the pedestrians, focus on the bikes. And here is another example, just a brief review of e-bikes. Again, looking for bikes that have that motor assist, but still have the ability to pedal. So ideally, we're focusing on bikes that have an electric motor. However, if you notice they have a gas motor and they still have the ability to pedal, mark them down as well. And if you could mark down that they had a gas motor, that would be great. But if you mark them down as just an e-bike, that's fine too. The more detail, the better. So let's go through a brief example of how you'll do your tally marks for the bicyclist intersection count form. So again, only counting bicyclists. So we're going to start here with this red arrow. So this is a bicyclist that's heading towards you. If you're standing where that blue star is, they're headed southbound. And if they're just doing a through movement going southbound, see the arrow go down to the bottom of your screen, you're going to be putting that tally mark where the bicyclist originated their movement. So that tally mark is going there in A2. Again, you don't have to worry about the letters and the numbers, but put that tally mark in A2 where that southbound bicyclist originated their movement for a through movement. All right, so now we're going to focus on this orange arrow on the right side of the screen, and look, that bicyclist is traveling westbound towards the mountains. They're doing a through movement, so you're looking at the arrow that matched that arrow moving to the left, and we're going to put that tally mark in section B2. And while you're collecting data on the bicyclist's turning movement and direction of travel, you're also trying to keep track of whether or not they're male or female, if they're an e-bike, and if they're wearing a helmet. And then if we have a right turn from a bicyclist who is traveling east and then change their direction of travel so that they're going south, just like you see in that dark red arrow, their tally mark is going to go in, you guys guess before I bring it up, it's going to go into section D3 right there. And then if we have a bicyclist making a left turn, so they're headed southbound and then change their direction to make a left turn and go eastbound, we're going to put their tally mark right beside that blue arrow where they originated their movement there at A1. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to give me, a shout out either by email or by phone. My email is tlipford@fcgov.com, and my cell phone number is noted on your count instruction form, so you can always get a hold of me that way. But it should be pretty straightforward. We're going to go into our next example here. So we also want to track bicyclists who use the crosswalk, acting as a pedestrian, or are riding on the sidewalk. So if we have a bicyclist using the sidewalk, maybe they walked through the crosswalk by holding their bike, or they're riding through the crosswalk on their bike, you're going to be tracking them as well. So if we have this arrow, this red arrow, moving away from you because you're standing in the southeast corner, so this bicyclist is headed northbound, see the compass there at the top, that bicyclist in the red arrow is going northbound across the crosswalk and the sidewalk, we're going to be putting their tally mark in box C2. There it is. If we have a bicyclist that's using the crosswalk and the sidewalk, and maybe they're headed south, they change their direction, they're making a left turn across the sidewalk there again, so kind of like a two-stage crosswalk turn. This person we are going to be tallying in box A1. And notice how this blue arrow matches the A1 arrow. So again, we're looking at the bicyclist's ultimate direction of travel. Where are they going to wind up going? And we're marking the tally mark where they originated. And then all the while we're taking tally marks on bicyclists wearing helmets, as well as their gender, male or female, and e-bikes. So make sure to collect this data while you're collecting their turning movements as well. So this is what your form may look like at the end. Make sure you're circling your totals for each of your boxes. And also write down your totals at the bottom as well for each bicyclist wearing helmets, male and female, and e-bikes. So just a reminder what you will need to bring for your count. Make sure you bring your count instructions as well as your count forms. Bring a device or utensil, something to write with, a pen or a pencil. Make sure to bring a timepiece. Don't want to forget that. Make sure you're able to tell those 15-minute intervals apart. Bring your clipboard if you need one, a hat, sunscreen, jacket. Be prepared for the weather. Snacks, food, water, and again, please plan to stay for the full 2 hours. We want to get a complete count because that will allow us to compare your count to previous year's counts and just gives us more robust data. And when you're finished with your count, please return your forms to me, either in person at 281 North College at the FC Moves office on the second floor, or you can return your forms to me via email. You can scan them in or take a picture of them. Just make sure they're legible. And please return these forms within 1 business day of your count. That's very important. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of phone calls or emails from me. I really want to get those forms back. So make sure you do return them within 24 hours. And if you do return your count forms, you are eligible to win one of many Downtown Business Association gift cards. And the more times you count, the more opportunities you have or more chances you have to win that gift card. We still have about 20 spots open, so if you are available to work more, please go ahead and sign up for another shift. We could use your help. And I would also like you to sign this waiver. This is a standard liability waiver. Please take the time to read through it. If you have any questions, please let me know. But I need to get this signed waiver from you before your count. So make sure you look through this, sign it, and scan and email it to me, or take a picture and email it to me before your count. And again, I hope you guys enjoy your counts. Here's a glimpse of the future. You're basically out there people watching. Hopefully it's a nice day for everyone, and we are very grateful that you're able to volunteer your time to support your community's bicycling and walking activity. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me.